I am genuinely excited about the future of filmmaking. I know a lot of people are afraid of artificial intelligence and the fact that people's attention spans are getting increasingly shorter, but I feel like we are really, as independent filmmakers, going to be the ones to carry the torch. I think eventually people are going to get a little disillusioned with things that are fake, and they're going to even more so crave human stories. And of course, thanks to accessible and affordable gear, crowdfunding, and direct distribution, the gatekeepers no longer have the final say. Back in 2019, fresh out of community college, I wrote, directed, produced, and self-funded my first feature-length film, Counterpole. I was 21, I was overly ambitious, I was full of fire, and the film ended up being 54 minutes long, and it was shot in just 4 chaotic, emotional, beautiful days. The film is about a woman named Erin who is pulled into the trap of this evil kidnapper named Kathy. Erin is then brought to this creepy cabin in the middle of nowhere where she has to fight her way out while also fighting her way out of past trauma, inner demons, and eventually making peace with her childhood self. It's dark, messy, and in some ways deeply personal. I was reaching for something bigger than anything I'd made before, something much more complex, larger, much more expensive. I did bite off a lot more than I can chew, but that was the point. I had an amazing crew, freelancers more skilled and experienced than I was, and they trusted me to lead. Sometimes I directed, other times I was directed, and this was my real film school. I learned about how to communicate with actors, how to manage chaos, trusting my instincts. So my cinematographer Christian Eves and I, over the years of working together, have developed a very solid method for how we approach a film. And it's pretty simple. We film the movie before we film the movie. We go into the location and we map out every single angle, every lighting setup, every lens that will be used, and that is how we were able to accomplish this very tedious, very difficult marathon of a 4-day shoot. Day one was dedicated to filming Erin's childhood scene, which had a lot of emotional dialogue. It was bright and early in the morning, and we went straight into this really intense scene, and I was absolutely terrified. But once we got started, there really weren't any time for nerves. Next, we shot the scene in Erin's apartment, and even though it was extremely exhausting, we had a very successful first day. But we still had a very long road ahead of us. Day 2 was an outdoor scene, the scene in the park where our protagonist Erin meets Kathy for the first time. We were really running against the clock this day to get to our second location, which was another Airbnb in town, and I remember the sun wasn't necessarily on our side that day. We were slightly behind schedule, which really sent me into a panic. But we quickly packed up and went to our second location, which is where we shot what would become the opening scene of the film, which was Erin in this black water bathtub. She actually has to sit up really fast in the film like she's waking up from a dream, and splashed water all over the bathroom, so we had to find a way to do that without the water getting on any of the camera equipment in the room. It was a lot, but it was a lot of fun. Day 3 was, without a doubt, the most challenging day. I was running on very little sleep, I was overstimulated, and we had 2 major scenes to do. Shots of Erin and Kathy in the car, Erin getting kidnapped and dragged into the house, and then we filmed this very long dream sequence which involved a lot of complex lighting setups, and there were a lot of extras present. I was nervously checking the fridge to make sure that, all the food hadn't run out, and it's so funny because I vividly remember that it was on this day that I was like, I'm not going to be a filmmaker. I hate this is like way too stressful for me. But of course, all of the talented people I had surrounding me, we made it through, and it was time for the final day. We had 3 fight scenes to film. 3. major fight scenes. We had Brian Epperson, who thankfully was not only an actor but a fight choreographer, completely map out these fights. And I was so excited at the time just to have a fight scene in my movie that I added like 3. And the story itself, it's funny, it started out really simple and then it just snowballed into this really elaborate story, and the main character ended up becoming much more of like an action character, much more of like a superhero type than I had originally planned. But the fight scenes were exhausting. They were so much fun. This was such a fun thing to do. I want to do it again. Enormous amounts of pre-production and practices happened for this film to take place. There was so much juggling, and looking back, it's like I don't even really know how we were able to pull it off. I mean, I was 21 at the time, I'm 27 years old now, and like being a senior citizen myself now, I don't know if I could do something this intense and fast again. I don't know, who knows? I'm just kidding. When the film was over, it was like this enormous weight was lifted off my shoulders. Post-production would bring its own stresses, but at the very least, the film had been shot, it's over, and I can finally breathe. Now, Counterpole did not rack up festival wins. Its 54-minute runtime made it kind of tricky to make it into any festivals or to program, I'm sure. And I wasn't as educated then as I am now about handling incredibly sensitive themes like trafficking and suicide. And I know I stumbled, but I also grew, and I think that's the beauty of taking risk. I think a lot about the rise of artificial intelligence in filmmaking, and I think it's a large reason why telling human stories, making thought-provoking, real, raw, complicated things, I think people are going to be really drawn to that. I think people are going to get kind of disillusioned with seeing things that are fake. And I'm not saying that you can't use artificial intelligence as a way to advance a story. I've definitely played around with it myself, but I think that, it's kind of hard to tell what the future is going to look like. So I think what's really important just for filmmakers and artists in general is to continue making their mark, continue being brave enough to put yourself out there, making things that are real, making things that provoke and bring joy and make people ask questions. I think that's really what art is all about. So if you're wondering if you need permission to make something, you don't. Start now. Learn as you go, fail, improve. That's how we grow. And Counterpole was not perfect, but it was real. It was mine. So even though, this video may not get that many views, I really just wanted to make this video to honor this formative experience that I had. And if anyone's watching that is also a creative person, you don't need permission from anyone to make what you want. Counterpole was expensive, but I raised up the money, I did it. Nobody told me that I could do it. I didn't wait for someone to hand me a key and say, oh, okay, you have the green light to do what you want. I don't think that's what filmmakers should focus on. If those opportunities come, that is wonderful and that's great, but you really can't wait for someone to come along and give you money to make a film or give you permission to make a film, because art belongs to us as human beings, and we don't need permission to make the things that we want. That's the beauty of being an artist, is that you do it for the enjoyment of it. This experience, the stress, the chaos, the expenses, the fear, taught me infinitely more about filmmaking and what it means to be a filmmaker than any amount of film school I could have ever had. Thank you for watching.